I came home thinking I'd earned peace. Instead, I walked straight into a war I didn't recognize. The Rowan estate looked smaller than I remembered. Autumn had dressed it in copper light gentle enough to fool me into believing I still belonged here. My mother's embrace was brief, scented with lemon oil and restraint. My father rose halfway from his chair, nodded once, and sat back down. Gavin smirked from the end of the table, tapping his knuckle against the glass like a metronome for tension. The lawyer opened his briefcase. "Your grandfather's estate," he began, "is left entirely to you, Ms. Rowan, for service and integrity." Silence pressed against the windows. My father's smile froze. The tremor in his hand betrayed him. Gavin laughed under his breath. "Guess medals pay better than loyalty." I heard my grandfather's old words echo through the quiet. "Honor isn't what you wear on your chest. It's what you live with when no one's watching." "I didn't ask for this," I said, but no one was listening. My mother poured water into a glass she didn't drink. The china stayed still, but I swore it should have rattled. Dinner broke apart into awkward choreography plates, past eyes averted, pride thickening the air. My father's questions about Brussels were polite grenades. I answered like a soldier following orders, minimal casualties. Outside, the wind rustled through the maples. Inside, it rustled through us. When the lawyer left, Gavin vanished on a call. My mother retreated to the kitchen, and I slipped into my grandfather's study. The leather journal waited on the desk, one page torn clean out. The next line read, "If honor fails, truth will defend itself." His handwriting shook, but his faith didn't. A memory surfaced: fluorescent NATO corridors at 3 a.m. alarms flashing red. My chief's voice steady. "We don't panic. We authenticate." Back then, it meant security codes. Now it meant people. Footsteps crossed the hall. My father stood in the doorway, gaze resting on the journal. "You should rest," he said. His voice was soft, too soft. "I will," I replied, but neither of us believed it. Later, the house thinned into night sounds, pipes, sighing floorboards shifting under the weight of history. I carried the journal to the porch, air sharp with rain and tobacco ghosts. Through the glass, I saw my father on the phone. His tone was calm, transactional. "Prepare the documents," he said. "She won't see it coming." The words chilled more than the wind. I pressed the journal to my chest and listened, the quiet breathing of a house that had just chosen sides. Upstairs, a door closed. The foxes cried once in the woods. I returned to the study and traced the torn page again, the wound of paper against my fingertips. I thought of the line, "If honor fails, truth will defend itself." Maybe that was what he'd left me. Not the house, not the land, but the warning. I turned off the lamp and waited for the dark to settle. That night, the house creaked like it remembered every secret it ever buried. The envelope was thick. The accusation thicker. It sat on my kitchen counter like a loaded weapon, official seal, my father's name beneath it. Subpoena. Allegations of elder manipulation and will forgery. I touched the paper as if it could burn me. The words blurred, but one line from my grandfather's journal cut through: "If honor fails, truth will defend itself." I whispered it aloud because silence suddenly felt guilty. By noon, vans lined Market Street, cameras yawning open like predators. A reporter matched my pace. "Captain Rowan, did you coerce your grandfather into changing his will?" His breath smelled of deadlines. I didn't stop walking. "No," I said. "You'll see that." The flash popped anyway. Inside, the TV screamed betrayal in uniform. My photo in fatigues beside my father's portrait labeled "Richard Rowan seeking justice." The anchor's tone made decorated sound like guilty. I shut it off before my mother's voice came through, but I was too late. She sat on a talk show couch, tissue in hand, saying, "Please just apologize. End this before it kills your father." When she called later, her voice trembled. "He's sick, Althea. Don't make this worse. If truth dies quietly," I said, "we all lose." The line landed like frost between us. I met Rafe Donnelly at a small cafe that smelled of old wood and burnt beans. His handshake was firm, eyes steady. "They're not after your money," he said, sliding the subpoena back across the table. "They're after your name." "Then I'll defend it," I answered. He nodded. "We'll file to dismiss. It won't stick. But it plants a flag." It didn't stick. 2 days later, motion denied, procedural delay. The stamp might as well have read "good luck." Outside the courthouse, microphones multiplied. "Did NATO cover it up?" someone shouted. I kept walking. Rafe fell in beside me without a word, which was its own kind of mercy. That night, I went to the Veterans Network Center to stack chairs for a job workshop. The routine steadied me. A boy, maybe 20, recognized me from TV. "You really her?" he asked. I nodded. "Thanks for the chairs," he said. It wasn't much, but it was real, and real felt rare. Back home, I sat by the window while my phone lit up with messages. Ivy Chen's text from Brussels blinked. Heard the noise. "You okay, steady?" I typed back. She replied, "Logs are yours if you need them." I stared at that offer until exhaustion softened its edges. Just before midnight, my phone rang again, unknown number. I almost ignored it. A distorted voice, low and urgent. "I know who forged it. Meet me before it's too late." The line went dead. The silence after was louder than the call. Morning brought more headlines. My father's interview aired while I stood in the doorway, coffee untouched. He looked composed, almost noble. "I love my daughter," he told the reporter. "But justice matters." "Do you believe she forged the will?" the anchor asked. He smiled, that careful politician's smile. "No soldier should deceive her own blood." The words pierced with surgical precision. I turned off the TV but couldn't turn off the echo. The subpoena lay open beside my untouched breakfast, its weight outlasting the food. The law had rules for evidence, not for heartbreak. I stared at my reflection in the dark window until my face blurred back into the uniform I'd worn for a decade, expressionless, precise, untouchable. My hands trembled anyway. I whispered to the woman looking back at me, not as comfort, but as promise. "Then let's see whose blood truth really runs through." They called my name like it was a verdict already decided. The Richmond courtroom gleamed under fluorescent light, too bright, too clean for the kind of dirt truth carried. Cameras clicked like insects. I stood when told, sat when told, the rhythm of a soldier pretending to be a civilian. Rafe leaned close, his voice steady as code. "We don't fight wars with bullets, we fight them with proof." Miles Harridan. My father's lawyer rose with a smile rehearsed to look spontaneous. He lifted a sheaf of emails toward the judge. "Your Honor, these show Captain Rowan used her NATO credentials to alter estate files. Intent is clear." He sounded almost sad for me. Then came my father performing heartbreak for the cameras. "She was always too clever," he said softly. "Cleverness becomes deceit." His words dripped with the weight of practiced love. I looked straight ahead, ring against my collarbone, grounding me. My brother took the stand next. His tie was too tight. Guilt sweated through starch. He stumbled when asked dates. Maybe late September or October. Rafe caught it, instantly scribbling 2 words. Timestamp check. When it was my turn, Miles tried to bait me. "Captain, are these your emails? I don't joke about my oath, Your Honor." My voice cut clean, stripped of anything but truth. The judge nodded slightly. Recess turned the hallway into noise, reporters, perfume, and coffee breath. I sat at the far bench, breathing slow until color returned to the world. My phone buzzed, an encrypted message from Ivy Chen, still in Brussels. Logs mismatch. IP origin Charlottesville, not Brussels. I reread it twice, heartbeat syncing with revelation. Gavin's hesitation, the polished grammar, the too perfect timing, all suddenly fit. I typed "need proof chain." Her reply came fast. "Working. Tunnel open in 10." My mother approached, clutching a torn photograph me at 8, dressed as a pirate, grinning beside a man who used to believe in me. "You look tired," she said softly. "I keep praying he'll surprise me." I didn't ask which she meant. Back inside, Miles performed empathy again, waving screenshots and sighs. Rafe's objections sliced each line of theater, calm as a surgeon. The family crest ring gleamed on my father's hand each time he gestured our family's supposed emblem of honor. I wondered what it weighed on him now. By evening, the hearing adjourned. Outside, microphones bloomed like weeds. "Captain Rowan, did you forge the will?" someone shouted. I gave them my silence. Frost glossed the courthouse steps as I walked away. My phone pinged again, a message from one of the veterans I'd mentored. "Don't let them name you wrong." That night, Rafe and I set up in a rented office lit by one humming lamp. Ivy tunneled in remotely. Lines of code rolled across the screen, log trail session keys, timestamp verifications. "The header shows your alias," Ivy said through the speaker, but the packets came from a local subnet. "Charlottesville, ISP." Her voice sharpened. "Someone used your identity inside the US. I didn't need her to say who." Rafe mapped the evidence on yellow paper, a quiet battle plan. "They're winning the crowd, not the court," I muttered. "Then let them," he said. "Crowds turn faster than truth." Sleep came in fragments. At 3 a.m., Ivy sent the final packet, the ISP trace leading straight to my brother's apartment. I sat still, feeling neither triumph nor anger, just the clean calm that comes before a strike. Before dawn, the courthouse glowed pale under frost. My mother stood beneath the portico, hands clasped around that same torn photo. She didn't speak when I passed, just touched my arm, a silent apology that almost broke me. When the next session began, my father leaned close, voice smooth as ever. "Even your silence looks guilty." I met his eyes and smiled faintly. "Then you'll love what the truth sounds like. They said truth takes courage. I learned it also takes timing." Snow powdered the courthouse steps, softening edges the way time softens anger. Inside, the same room felt heavier, as though it had memorized every whisper from the last hearing. I sat down, palms open, breathing slow. Rafe's eyes found mine. "Wait," they said, without words. "Let lies echo before truth speaks." Miles Harridan began his final performance. He spoke of forged emails, betrayal, motive, all recited like scripture. Captain Rowan used her NATO access to deceive her family, he told the judge, voice rich with false sympathy. I didn't look at him. The microphone squealed once, a sharp note of protest, then fell quiet. Rafe rose. "Defense calls NATO systems analyst Ivy Chen." The screen flickered, revealing Ivy's calm face against a white Brussels backdrop. She swore in steady as math. "The email originated domestically," she said. "IP 1292.168.44.1, Charlottesville." A gasp rippled across the courtroom. Miles froze. My father's hand clenched the railing. Ivy continued, showing headers, timestamps, and NATO's certification log. Each fact landed clean as a gavel strike. Rafe handed a packet forward. "Metadata verified by NATO's cybersecurity office." Richard stood abruptly. "I demand to see the proof." His voice cracked. Rafe turned the page toward him, polite final. My father read, blinked once, and sat down again, dignity sagging under the weight of exposure. Then the quietest person in the room rose. My mother. Her hands trembled around a leather journal. "He told me to keep this safe," she said softly, "but I can't anymore." She handed it to the clerk, the missing page restitched with thin thread. The judge lifted it carefully and read aloud. "If my son lets pride blind him, the house shall go to the one who remembers honor." No one breathed. Richard stared at the floor as if the boards themselves betrayed him. Beside him, Gavin lowered his head. "I'm sorry, Dad," he whispered. Miles tried to recover, questioning timestamps, intent, even the thread in the page, but Rafe dismantled each claim with quiet precision. The snow against the tall windows tapped like a clock running out of excuses. Judge Whitaker leaned back voice level. This court finds in favor of Captain Althea Rowan. The gavel struck once soft, yet absolute. Then he added, "Justice isn't vengeance, it's restoration." The air shifted. Ivy gave a small nod on the screen before fading to black. Rafe exhaled, pen rolling from his fingers. My mother pressed her hands to her face, tears falling soundlessly. Richard stood again, smaller now. "I wanted him to love me more than he loved you," he said to the floor, the years, the ghosts. The words shook loose something in the room. I rose calm as stone. Honor doesn't beg to be believed. It simply waits to be proven. The silence that followed was cleaner than any applause. We left the courtroom together, our steps echoing on marble. Outside, snow erased footprints as fast as they formed. Reporters waited like hawks, their lenses catching flakes instead of answers. One called out, "Captain Rowan, what will you do now?" I paused, meeting the camera straight on. "Build something my family never could piece." The court fell silent weeks ago. That silence stayed like a flag at rest, not in surrender, but in peace. Spring sunlight spilled through the open windows of the Rowan estate, carrying the scent of sawdust and paint. The house no longer felt like a battlefield. On a glass table rested the folded burial flag. Beside it, the re-sewn journal labeled "Repaired" by Eleanor Rowan. My grandfather's navel ring hung against my collarbone, warm as pulse. Outside the door waited a brass plaque still covered by cloth, "Truth built this home." Rafe walked beside me with a clipboard, boots crunching on new flooring. "You turned a verdict into a mission," he said after signing the final document. The schedule board read, "Peer counseling, job pipeline, legal aid." I smiled. It had to be more than winning, I said. It had to be building. The front door creaked open. My parents stood framed by light. Eleanor steady, Richard smaller than I remembered, a cedar box in his hands. He opened it, the ring's original case and a faded photo of me at 8, saluting my grandfather. "I guarded the wrong things," he said quietly. "If you can't forgive me yet, let this place do it for you." The words didn't demand, they offered. We walked the hall in silence until he stopped before the framed judge's note, "Justice isn't vengeance, it's restoration." His shoulders eased. Some truths, I realize, don't need witnesses, only space to breathe. At 10, 2 young veterans arrived, hesitant, scanning exits like old habits. I greeted them and pinned a simple enamel compass to the board marked Day 1. "You're not late to your own life," I told them. They smiled, small, uncertain, real. Later, I opened an envelope addressed in careful handwriting. Gavin's apology was short. I thought winning would fill the empty parts. It didn't. "I'm sorry." I slipped it under the journal's case beside the stitches that held our story together. On the porch, sunlight pooled across the steps. Richard lingered with his hat in hand. "I fought to keep our name honest," I said, "not to win against you." He stared at the yard, voice thin but true. "And I fought to be seen. Pride made me blind." I pulled out a chair. No speech. Just air and forgiveness. He sat, and the silence became gentle again. By noon, Eleanor practiced tying the ribbon while Rafe tested the microphone. Volunteers carried coffee and donuts, laughter echoing through rooms once filled with accusation. The flag stirred in its case, approving softly. Outside, a few reporters waited, fewer cameras this time. I stood behind the cloth-covered plaque, the compass badge glinting beside the veterans inside. Truth had defended honor. Now it was my turn to defend truth. "Captain Rowan," one reporter called a closing quote. I looked at the flag, the young men, and my father on the porch. "The hardest wars don't end with an armistice," I said. "They end when we choose who will be after." The cloth fell. The plaque caught the sun. And for once, the only applause came from the wind itself. If you've ever fought for truth when silence would have been easier, then you already know a part of my story. I didn't win because I was stronger. I won because I refused to let lies define my family's legacy. Tell me what you think. Was I right to forgive, or should I have walked away entirely? In your own life, remember this: justice restores order, but forgiveness restores peace. Don't let pride steal your healing. Choose what endures: truth, compassion, and the courage to rebuild.